Hello, witches! It's Wednesday, so it is time for the Witches Movie Coven. Yes, yes, witches talking about witches in witchy movies, all with plushy black Philip goats, which are growing by the moment. And I just want to show you before we move, here we know Bling Philip. Now we've got Super Bling Philip. Oh. Yes, yes. I'm getting ready to go. I'm only going to be here for a few minutes, and I'm passing my baton over to Richard-Lael because I am actually going to go see Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, a live show at the Pantages Theater in Hollywood, and I'm very excited. And I'm walking there because we like to walk in Hollywood. But you're all going, what are you guys doing here? We're talking about movies. I am Patty Negri. I am one of your hosts. You might know me from my regular podcast, The Witching Hour. Everywhere you get podcasts, or from Ghost Adventures, or from, bathroom walls across America, and a whole lot of different TV show and YouTubers. But let me introduce you my beautiful and amazing co-hosts, and I'll go in the order from the way I see you. So let's move over to Richard-Lael.
Hello, I am Richard-Lael. That is one name, not two. If I were just Richard, I would be a... That is right. I'm known as the Gentleman Psychic. I am also sometimes seen on Ghost Adventures. Sometimes I'm seen in nightmares. Sometimes erotic dreams. I'm okay with those. You can also find me at University Magicus and here in New Orleans, where I do tarot and I do seances in my beautiful home.
Thank you very much. Let's move over to Miss Courtney.
That's me. I'm Courtney Buckley, ghost bait on Scared and Alone. And I've got my sunglasses ready because the movie that we're talking about tonight, I have some opinions on. And as we know, I'm prepared in case anyone else has incorrect opinions. So I just wanted to be ready to go.
Thank you very much. And to the one and only Heather Greene.
Hi, I'm Heather Greene, and I am the author of Lights, Camera, Witchcraft. It is the critical history of witches and witchcraft in American film and television. I am an editor at Llewellyn Worldwide, as well as a journalist covering all kinds of things occult. And I am a member of this wonderful coven, and I'm so happy to be here this Wednesday to talk about this movie.
Thank you very much.
I won't get hexed.
Wishful thinking. We do not have Jason with us this evening. We miss him, but we have two. It took two fabulous fill-ins because I'm leaving too. Let's move down to Thumper.
Hey, hello. I am Thumper Forge. I'm a witch and an author and a blogger and a Discordian. And if I'm here, Jason Mankey's in jail again.
Oh, yeah. So awesome.
That makes sense.
We are happy to have you back. Thank you, Thumper. Always love when you come. And a very familiar face around here, the one and only Tabitha Meadows.
Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. I am Tabitha Meadows. I am a medium and psychic, and I am absolutely thrilled about being back here again this week to talk about the witch movie.
Thank you very much. And this movie, the movie we are seeing, is The Last Witch Hunter. The Last Witch Hunter with, I'm having trouble, with Vin Diesel. I'm glad I'm not staying for the whole show because I fell asleep. That's not a comment on the movie, but I fell asleep. But just in case any of you didn't see it, I don't know what year is it from. What year is it from? It was
2015.
2015. Thank you, Heather. So just in case somebody didn't see it, Richard-Lael, do you have a completely unbiased synopsis of this fine film?
And how?
Oh, boy.
Here it comes.
Picture it. Sicily, 1922. It's not Sicily. It's not Italy. It's not 1922. However, I wish that I were back in Sicily in 1922 because then I would not have seen this film. Anyway, that's not the plot. The plot is it's pre-2020. It was a different world. And so fresh from his Fast and Furious films, which were, of course, 5,000 of them, Vin Diesel breaking character. plays a role that has nothing to do with Fast and Furious, excepting the fact that he does have, what is that, an Aston Martin? And it's not red, which is good. Apparently, he was at some point a witch hunter like 600 years ago. And then he decided to go full DEFCON on the Grand High Witch, eliminating her life. And as a result, as the Grand High Witch from the witches, you know, Angelica Houston and whatnot, as he eliminates the Grand High Witch, she dies, and then she curses him to eternal life, because now he gets to see everyone that he's loved die and never meet them in paradise. And then there's a lot of Catholic liturgy, and the church is always right, and witchcraft is always wrong. And then, of course, Sir Michael Caine is brilliant and slumming it in his later years. He plays a docent or a do-si-do or I don't remember. He plays this sort of person who is in guard of this 600-year-old witch hunter. And then he's replaced by Frodo. And it turns out that he's afraid to show the hands because his hands are burned. And it is assumed that they were burned by a witch who had killed his parents. They go through, there's a lot of sort of back and forth. There's a dream walker, there's fight scenes, there's drive scenes, a lot of back and forth, great production values. And then there is the ultimate betrayal. The ultimate betrayal is that somebody in our group suggested this film. As to the film itself, there was a betrayal, and Frodo decided that he was going Fast and Furious and raid Vin Unleaded or something. Anyway, he was going to, the Witch Queen is somehow resurrected, and then he kills her again. And then he was going to end his own, and then is talked into not because people need. And then Sir Michael Caine is back alive, is not dead, and is no longer the 37th, or the 36th. He was the 36th, and then there was Frodo, and then he was the 37th. Anyway, he decides that he'll postpone retirement and continue helping Vin Unleaded. That's about it. Credits.
Vin Unleaded. I can't.
We are speechless, Richard-Lael. Thank you for that very unbiased, complete, detailed explanation of the film. But just in case somebody didn't get the entire film, maybe, Heather, maybe we have 5 things that we actually do need to know about it as well.
Yeah, I got some things for you. I'm going to get my notes here, as I always do. And there's something stuck to the top of that. Let's see. So my 5 things today about this film, I'm going to talk about context because that's really important. We'll look at the cast. We'll look at its connection to Dungeons and Dragons and the success of the film or the not success. And then we'll talk about witchcraft and why this film is unusual. And despite anything Richard-Lael just said. So, context, this film came out in 2015. That's a really important time to know why this film came out. That was right in the center of the popularity of witchcraft films that were dark fantasy, dark fairy tales. Think about Snow White and the Huntsman. That was 2012. We had Hansel and Gretel, and we probably had about 5 or 10 different Hansel and Gretel films, honestly. But Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters, which we've done here, similar aesthetic, 2013. Season the Witch a little earlier. That one also had a dark historical aesthetic, but there was a ton of this dark fantasy, fractured fairy tales, and fantasy that came out at this particular time. This fits that mold. Okay, so that's what this is. This has that. Now, a lot of people pair it with The Witcher. The Witcher, obviously, that that one, I don't remember when that started. That series is more recent, but it has that dark fantasy, fantasy heaviness to it that was very popular, that incorporated witchcraft. And that was, as I said, popular at that time. So that's the context of this. Now, the cast itself, we've got some notables. Despite what you think about this film, we do have Vin Diesel, who at this point was very well known. Born in 1967, Vin Diesel got his really claim to fame in the Fast and Furious series, which Richard-Lael pointed out. He wasn't in the second one. He didn't want to do a sequel, but it was popular. He's been in all 7,000 other ones. I've only seen the Tokyo Drift one, and I'm going to be completely honest. I enjoyed it thoroughly. He was most recently in Fast X in 2023. That was the last, I think, Fast and Furious. He was also Riddick, Chronicles of Riddick. That's another one of his most popular and known pieces. But he also starred in other things like Saving Private Ryan, and he is the voice of Groot. He's a big fan of the Marvel heroes. We'll get back to him in a minute because he comes in later for this movie. We have Elijah Wood, of course, best known for Frodo Baggins. So immediately he appears on the screen and everyone thinks this is going in a different direction. There he is. So you cannot look at Elijah Wood without thinking of Lord of the Rings. We will be hopefully reviewing that here soon. He also had lots of bit parts here and there. He was apparently a child actor for a long time in the late 80s and 90s. Back to the Future 2, he had a bit part in, for example. But he's been around beyond Lord of the Rings. Rose Leslie. So I think I said last week that I'm revisiting Game of Thrones. If you've seen Game of Thrones, she is most known for Ygritte in Game of Thrones. There she is right there. Fantastic character. One of my favorite characters from the series. And she is married to Kit Harington, who is Jon Snow right there. And she's been in a bunch of other things. You might have seen her in Downton Abbey. She was in season 1. So she's a pretty good actress. I do enjoy seeing her on screen. Michael Caine, of course. We can't not talk about Michael Caine, although he spent most of this movie lying in a coffin, almost nearly dead, almost completely dead. He has been in over 160 films. He's got his start in the 60s. He was in British films like The Italian Job and Zulu. He had Academy Awards. He's been everything from serious films to films like this to comedy. I mean, you've seen him do everything. Cider House Rules, the Batman trilogy, Austin Powers, The Muppets Christmas Carol. Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, of course, one of my favorites. Most recently, his last film was The Great Escaper, a British film, 2023. He has since announced his retirement. I don't know if he's like 91 years old, guys. He's not a spring chicken and he keeps going. You also have the German French actress who plays the Witch Queen here, which you can't really see her face in it, Julie Engelbrecht. She's been in a few things, mostly foreign, and I will mispronounce his name. The evil guy, the guy who's the bad guy with the beard. I will butcher his name, and I apologize. He's been in a few things as well. You might recognize his face. He's an Icelandic actor. I think it's Olaf Dari Olafsson. There it is, Olafur Dari Olafsson. It's on the screen. I'm sure I butchered that terribly, but he's been in a few things as well. But those are the actors. So I want to get back to Vin Diesel real quick because that brings us to the D&D connection.
Hold on one second. Hold on one second. I have to run off. Okay. Because Peter is waiting. So I'm going to have to watch this on reruns when I get home or tomorrow to get the last things. But I'm turning my beautiful baton and wand over to Richard-Lael and the rest of you. I'm going to go see Harry Potter now. I love you. I miss you already. And I'll see you next week. And back to you, Heather. Bye, guys.
Oh, bye, Patty.
I'm going to leave this on so I don't take you off of YouTube or X. So I'm going to leave Black Phillip here in my seat right here.
There they are.
If your dolls start moving when you leave, I swear to Dark Lord himself, I will leave.
You will.
Bye, guys. Have fun. Oh my God.
Have fun. We can't wait to hear.
They're looking at me.
Don't look at the screen, Courtney.
I can't. Oh.
Read through it.
Oh.
I'm going to distract you and tell you all about Dungeons and Dragons. How's that?
Yes, please.
Okay, so apparently Vin Diesel is a giant nerd. He loves Dungeons and Dragons, and he's been playing since he was born in the 60s. He's been playing since the 70s, through the 80s, through the Satanic Panic when Dungeons and Dragons was turning people into Satanists and all that crazy stuff. He loves it, and he's talked about it. He apparently played it on the sets. I mean, allegedly, supposedly, I don't have proof, but apparently during the filming of Riddick and stuff like that, he would have campaigns. He also he wrote the introduction, or he did the introduction to the 30 years of adventure, a celebration of Dungeons and Dragons. So he is a big part of the Dungeons and Dragons culture, loves it personally. Everybody knows he's this big nerd, other than liking Marvel as well. He had a character named Melkor who was part of his campaigns throughout his life. This character, Kaulder, is Melkor, is based on his campaigns. This movie is based on his campaigns. The character is based on Melkor. They could not use the name Melkor because that is a Tolkien character, apparently a devil figure, which I don't remember that character at all, but that is who it is. So they had to change the name, and they changed it to Coulder. So there is a Dungeons and Dragons connection. Now, I'm not a player, but apparently there are nods to Dungeons and Dragons throughout it. So I'm sure a hardcore Thumper is shaking his head, so maybe he can illustrate that later on when he talks about it. But apparently there are. So that's number 3. Number 4, is there going to be a sequel? So Lionsgate has suggested there is actually going to be a sequel, and they've been hinting at it, but they've been hinting at it for a bunch of years, and still there has not been a sequel. So the last I checked in 2024, there were suggestions that it was in the works. Whether that means they're writing it, exploring it, hard to say. The original film did not do that great. It earned 147 million. It was a 90 million budget. So it got mixed reviews. So, to go ahead and make a second one after that kind of response is rare. However, Vin Diesel is a box office draw. So it is possible that we could eventually see a Last Witch Hunter 2, or another Last Witch Hunter, or maybe it's not the Last Witch Hunter. Here's another one. Something. I see some eyes rolling in one of those boxes. Finally, number 5, I want to talk about real quick the magic in this. So this movie was interesting to me when I was doing my study, because rarely do you ever get direct suggestions of Norse mythology in witchcraft films. And that is very strong here. Of course, we see the Helm of All, we see runes, we see the discussion of runes. The beginning period 800 years ago clearly is a Nordic setting with the snow and the way they're dressed. They're supposed to be, quote unquote, Vikings of some sort. The tree gives off the suggestion of the Yggdrasil, the tree. And so that's all kind of interesting. But what's even more interesting, and other things, you see the pentagram, you see the discussion of the elementals, you have witches, you have all this stuff going on. So there's a lot of pull from modern witchcraft, which of course includes some of that heathenry. What I think is interesting there's also an understanding in 2015 that witchcraft is not bad. That there is a nuance. So this film nuances this idea of witchcraft. It could have played totally into the church versus witchcraft satanic stuff we saw earlier 20 years ago, but it didn't. And although it tries, and there is that element, most certainly we have Belial, or what do they call him in here? Belial is
Belial.
Exactly. Belial is how he calls them. So you have that in there, but you also have the suggestion of the elementals being just regular magic. You have not bad or good. And you have the witch queen.
The what queen?
The what?
The what queen?
The witch. Okay, we're not doing that again. You've caught me that before. We have the witch queen as the center point of nature. She is nature. And there's a dichotomy there that's really, really important. And I'm not going to go on about that now. I can discuss it at another time if we have time. but the dichotomy of witchcraft here, it's a subtle thing, being the spirit of everything that is natural, and humanity being the spirit of everything that is constructed and unnatural. That theme runs through this movie, which I find to be absolutely fascinating for a movie that would otherwise be completely devoid of any meaning. Just a film, and you see it throughout with the imagery, the way they juxtapose nature and the tree, and then all of a sudden you'll see a shot of the city. There is a male-female thing going on here with gender. There's also a nature witch thing going on here. It is really, really, really interesting to see this in this type of film. I am done. That is the 5 things you need to know about this movie. And I'm not getting hexed.
Well, I'm glad that we were able to play the which, who, what, where game for just a little moment. That's always my favorite time of the show. So now I'm going to open it up. Who would like to talk next? I think Courtney does.
Oh, me? That's me.
That's you.
All right. Allow me to open up my notes because I watched this today. I don't think I saw it when it came out because it wasn't very familiar. Fun fact, though, Nathan watched it. He had already seen it. So he offered his opinions, and he asked that I also provide, because he was forced to watch it again with me today, that later when we do wands up and wands down, that I also provide his opinion as well. I was confused because first of all, Vin Diesel reminds me, unfortunately, of my dad. My dad was like the skinny, scrawny Skeletor version of Vin Diesel, but they look every once in a while just similar enough that I'm like uncomfortable when I look at the screen. And then there was, okay, I'm just gonna read you what I wrote. I'm gonna go in a little different order than what my notes were, but aren't they not witches, but they're doing magic while they're trying to catch the witches? That seemed a little odd to me. So they're using magic to hunt the witches. I did not like, it was stupid sometimes how serious he was about it, but then he would make this face where his eyes would bug out. Like he would, it's such a weird thing. Like he'd be so serious, I'd be into it, and then he'd be like, and I'm like, what are you doing? It's disgusting. And I was physically uncomfortable when I was looking at it. Lastly, I could not decide who I was rooting for. Like, it was very difficult to decide who I was rooting for in this movie. One, because the Queen Witch is a whole mood, and I want her spine ponytail every day for the rest of my life. But also, in this movie, Vin Unleaded is pretty badass. And guess what? Here's the thing. You're all getting hexed because I loved it. I thought it was great. I enjoyed it so much. It's the first movie in a while that I have not had to like battle my ADHD to consume. It was beautiful to look at. It was interesting. The magic was really cool to watch. Yes, it was stupid. Yes, it was ridiculously bonkers at points. Whatever. Vin Diesel did not belong in this movie at all, but I loved it. I loved it. So Colin, I'm coming for, I see you in the comments. I'm coming. That's it.
Oh, Colin's been hexed.
I will say, Colin brought up a point that this is the kind of film that I would have fallen asleep on, excepting the fact that it was too loud. Actually, I was taking a bath. And if I would have fallen asleep in the bath, I would not be here today. And I think the world might have been better because then I wouldn't have had to watch this film. Anyway, I'm not giving my review, not yet. Tabitha, how about you?
Well, I didn't mind it. First of all, I'm a fan of Vin Diesel, so I didn't mind it. But there were just a couple of things that I thought were pretty neat in the movie. Like I feel like the first time we meet the medieval Candyman with all the plague flies that are flying around him, and that one of those first scenes there. you know, I like to watch movies and like look at all the little details and look for Easter eggs and those sort of things. I totally agree with you, Richard-Lael. When Frodo first pops, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's Caulder totally has Frodo working for him. So we have Candyman, we have Frodo. There was lots of wonderful witchcraft and all the elementals, and I appreciated all of that. It was to me, it was just action packed and just full of witchiness everywhere. And I too, you know, a lot of the time sided with a witch queen because, you know, as witches, we are about preserving nature, and you know, man is kind of a plague on the earth. So, you know, got to do what you got to do. There was one thing in particular, though, that I found really interesting. It was about the beginning of the movie. Caulder is in his modern day lair, and he's standing in front of a painting, and I might butcher this name too, but when I was in college, I took art history, so I love little Easter eggs and things like this. So he stood in front of an art piece, a painting called "Portrait of a Young Man," and it was by Ambrosius Holbein. And Ambrosius was the older brother of Hans Holbein, who was the official artist for Henry VIII. And if you want to go down that rabbit hole, you can, but it is a rabbit hole, because we know that King Henry VIII accuses and not accuses Anne Boleyn. It's not, you know, really on the records. Treason is what she got, but said that she bewitched him. But if you, I mean, you could really go on down the line, finding out that Princess Diana is kin to the Boleyns through Mary Boleyn. So yeah, if you want to check out that piece of artwork, I thought it was very cool. It kind of you know, placed him with a, you know, from going from the medieval times to modern times, and they put that little nugget in there. So I really did appreciate that. But overall, I dug it.
Yes.
You mentioned the
You're
Candyman.
not getting hexed.
You mentioned the Candyman, and I have to admit, the scene that got me, though, was when the kid finds the gummy bear and then goes off and, like, it's like they're in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory and, like, just gobbling, putting things in.
It was like Hansel and Gretel.
Vin Unleaded said,
Yeah.
"Didn't your mother ever teach you not to eat candy from a tree?" Like, well, no, my mother didn't teach me that. Willy Wonka did.
The other thing is that because he was a parent, the other thing that I wanted to point out too was every time there was a child who came in and he was like, "Oh, I need help. He seemed to fall for that every single time, and I'm screaming, "Don't do it! Don't do it!" You know.
I literally did the same
thing.
I did the same thing. It was one of, like, the first time he walked into, like, the dark whatever, and there was a little girl, and then the next time he went into the dark whatever, I paused it and I was, like, talking to the television. I was like, okay, game plan. If you see a kid, you're just gonna stab it. Like, we're not doing this again.
I mean, I love children. I can just never finish a whole one by myself. But I am all for stabbing children. I think that's great. I'm kidding, or am I? I don't know. Thumper, you haven't spoken yet.
I love this movie in the same way that I love, like, a really good Hammer film, where it was, as Heather said, there was a lot of nuance to it, but at the same time, a lot of it was just very over the top, and there were melodramatic moments. The one kind of issue I actually had with it was Elijah Wood's character, because I think he's very underrated as a villain in general. That's not what he's known for, but he plays a villain really, really well. Like in Maniac and in Sin City, where he plays these really insane characters. I felt like his side plot was sort of a throwaway, where he was like, surprise, I double-crossed you, and my parents were the witches you killed, but I don't have any magic. But I'm gonna, and then he gets killed immediately for not having magic. And there was no build-up to that. It just sort of happened, and that was unsatisfying to me. That said, I'm not a D&D player myself. I have a weird aversion to role-playing games, but I am cursed to know a lot about them. So there were a lot of, like, just the overall feel of the movie kind of was a campaign, and there were lots of little side quests, and that the characters, you know, they meet up and then they form this party and they go off and do these things. There was a throwaway line towards the beginning about somebody was a 14th level warlock. So when we get into levels, character levels, that's a role-playing game thing. But Vin Diesel is very much a D&D fanatic. The Chronicles of Riddick, he brought D&D elements into that as well. Judi Dench played an elemental in the movie, and the elemental was in the movie specifically because of Dungeons and Dragons. They did play on set. He taught Judi Dench how to play Dungeons and Dragons. So he is as obsessed with that as Heather said. Overall, I think it's fun. I want a bar like that. That's like my dream job, is just to have this like witch's den, and I just kind of go around checking on people and making a potion. That I love that. That will always draw me in. I think the one thing I was gonna like really nail it for was I decided at some point that it didn't pass the Bechdel test. Which, are y'all familiar with that?
We will be.
Okay, so the Bechdel test, it comes from an old comic strip by a cartoonist named Alison Bechdel. And there was a line in this old strip where this woman said, I only see movies that have at least 2 female characters who talk to each other about something other than a man. And a surprising number of movies do not pass the Bechdel test. And I was like, okay, this is going to be my one big critique other than Elijah Wood, is that the movie doesn't pass the Bechdel test. But Chloe does speak to Danique, the model witch, briefly before taking away her anti-aging powers. And then the Witch Queen talks to Chloe, and it's just like one line, you know, Dreamwalker, and then she's possessed. But they weren't talking about Vin Diesel, so it's okay. So it does pass the Bechdel test. My one other, I have a resentment, not about this movie, but in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, something that always bothered me about that movie was they were like, the Scarlet Witch is going to cast the most evil, disgusting spell from this book of evil. What's it called? Dreamwalking. And that always struck me as the stupidest name for the evilest spell of all time. And there was also something else bothering me about that. Every time I've seen Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, I'm like, why does Dreamwalking bother me so badly? And it's because they ripped it off directly from this movie. Because Chloe's special gift was Dreamwalking, which was a dark gift. It was kind of considered an evil thing. But I feel like they just took that from Multiverse of Madness and tried to make it really, really evil while still keeping the My Little Pony name to it. And so I'm protective of this movie as the origins of Dreamwalking.
I mean, I can understand that, Thumper. I can understand the protection of dreamwalking. I myself have been known to walk in dreams. Like I said from the beginning, sometimes nightmares, sometimes erotic work. I'm okay with that. But I will tell you, well, no, maybe I shouldn't. But I have been known to appear in people's dreams, and that's all. We'll talk about that. Who has anything else they'd like to say?
I'm gonna jump in and give my opinion. Basically, there's a lot. I think this movie, you know, on the one level I said is terribly interesting because of that nuance. And this was when we really got to start to see these movies that were not only giving green lights to expressions of moral nuance within these things, within characters that were normally just bad. And so you start to see that more and more, even outside of witchcraft films, where you start to see, well, this person could be good or this could be bad. And you see this. And so I think, you know, this movie is so interesting because you don't, at least from our perspective as witches, who agree to some extent with what the Witch Queen is saying, because she's not wrong.
She's not wrong.
She's not wrong. You know, and the movie actually, you think, okay, maybe we're just agreeing as witches with her, because gosh, we want a world that's more natural. When they show that city with all the greenery, you're like, okay, yeah, she's not wrong. And then when the one character, was it Chloe, she says, well, what do you think they think who we are? She says, do they think we have green skin and pointy hats and we're from Salem? And then they have an exchange, and she says, well, if they hadn't, and he says something like they weren't witches. I don't remember. Maybe Courtney has the quote.
It's one of my 3
Okay.
quotes.
Well, then I won't continue what I'm about to say because I want to steal from your thunder there. But she makes the point that if the people had been witches, they would have been killed. So there's actually moral points in here that are really, really hard. It's hard to fully side with the good guys, and it's hard to really side with the bad guys as well. There's this complication, and you don't see this level of complication in this movie.
I didn't have any complications. I was for the bad person. I was for the witch, the Grand High Witch. I was for her the entire time. I thought Vin Unleaded could have. He was so cardboard. I thought
he was cardboard.
He was
totally cardboard.
And Father Frodo was so underwhelming. And the only thing I really enjoyed was Sir Michael Caine, but only because he was wearing that lovely embroidered cassock when he was, or hassock when he was dead, supposedly. Like, right. I was like, oh, that's a beautiful costume. Like, that would make really lovely pillows. That was my entire thought.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead. Finish.
But I loved the bar. I thought the witch bar was kind of, I mean, the what bar, the who bar was fabulous. Yeah, that's.
I agree with you. I think Vin Diesel's Vin Diesel no matter where he is, and that's right. And you can't get away from that. And there's points where you just look at him where he does some acting where you're like, okay, that's Vin Diesel. That's Vin Diesel.
Right. Oh, is that what you're calling his work? Acting?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm gonna call it that. But I love the actress. I love Chloe. I love. There's pieces of it that are good. I love the nuance. I love the Witch Queen. There's a picture of her in the book because I love the nuance in it. And if you strip all of that aside, I think this is so much fun. If you take away all of that, and it's just, I like I said, I watched Tokyo Drift and liked it. So this is one of those movies where you go, okay, brain off, I'm watching it. Let's go.
Yes.
I think Vin Diesel was actually, in a way, kind of brilliantly cast in this role because he is not, Shakespearean. No. But, the character is 800 years old, has lived life to the fullest, has experienced everything. So to put Vin Diesel as that character who is not going to react to anything, it makes sense. Like nothing phases him. And
nothing.
I think putting an actor with a very limited emotional range into that role was actually quite smart.
I think my problem with it was like, anytime there were certain things that he would say, like he would say them in a weird way that was like, oh yeah, okay, you're 800 years old, so that's why you're talking like that. But he said it in his own voice, so all I could see was Fast and Furious because that's like who he is. So it was. I feel like I don't disagree, Thumper, at all. I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. But at the same time, I feel like he's too, like I can't separate him from Fast and the Furious.
Yeah. And I can't separate him from Riddick because, which the character came from Pitch Black.
Yeah.
I've never been sure if Vin Diesel just plays Vin Diesel or if Vin Diesel created a character for Riddick and now he's just Riddick.
Right.
And like I had a friend in college who was kind of quiet and kept to himself, but he had to play an over-the-top British character in a play and everyone loved his performance. So he just became an over-the-top British person. And that just became his entire personality for the rest of the time we were in school. And I kind of feel like Vin Diesel did the same thing.
The Vin Diesel effect.
Yeah,
it does happen.
I'm going to add in. I just want to add in. You guys have talked about Elijah Wood, and I agree. I think he was pretty much the whole role and the acting. Everything was either underused or dead or. They didn't play the storyline out enough. It was the most boring part about the whole movie. It's almost like, who cares? They could have omitted the whole he was really a witch thing, and it wouldn't have affected the entire thing. That was kind of, I could have done without that, and they could have played up some of the more interesting aspects of it and sort of dove into the complexity of the morality. Maybe showed us the council a little bit more, or maybe given us a little bit more of the more interesting characters. They could have balanced it to make it a little bit more of a movie with a little more depth playing into that, but they didn't. Which is fine. You know, it's, again, if this is a Vin Diesel vehicle movie is what this ultimately is. And it's for Vin Diesel, and Vin Diesel's bringing the money, and there's witches, and this was a popular witch period. And I had fun watching it a second time.
I do think it didn't quite know what it wanted to be.
What was that?
I just, when you mentioned that, you know, as a vehicle for Vin Diesel, I feel like as much as I enjoyed the film, I do feel like it doesn't know what it wants to be. Like, is it a pilot? Is it setting up a franchise? Is it a standalone? And it kind of was all of those things, not just one. And I think that affected kind of the flow and kind of the plots, like throwing the Elijah Wood storyline in really at the end. But there was no build up to it. You know, is that something we want to explore later? Okay, we have this council. They're great. Maybe they'll come back later. Maybe they won't. But they were cool while they were here. And there was lots of that throughout the film, of introducing elements and then kind of saying, okay, we're going to hang on to them because we may use them later. But
it did feel like that.
I know what it wants to be. It wants to be a thorn in my side.
Not a Broadway musical?
I mean, you know what? That actually might make it better.
The Last Witch Hunt, the musical. Oh.
What if they sang?
I mean,
with some sharks?
I wouldn't want Vin Unleaded to sing.
No.
Can you imagine?
I wonder if he does sing. I'm gonna have to look it up.
I'm sure. A good jukebox musical. We could pick some pop songs and throw them in, and
The Last Witch Hunter, the musical.
Take my money. I'm saying front row.
I will be right there with you.
There's a connection that Mary Jane King made, though, where she says, being born of witches but with no magic is such a ripoff of Harry Potter. And I kind of made that a little bit of a Harry Potter connection here as well, because I felt like Caulder and the witch were connected and kept alive, you know, as long as her heart were still pumping, you know, he could be alive. So I felt like there was a little like Caulder was like Harry Potter and the Witch Queen was like Voldemort. So I mean, and at the end, you know, the heart's still beating in his closet. So they were very much a part of each other, and they were, you know, dependent. Their life depended on one another.
Yeah. Breaking news: Vin Diesel released a single.
Oh God.
So there is a possibility for a musical.
Sure is.
And it's called a single for a reason.
Well, he was apparently, from what I'm seeing in my very brief Google search right now, so we don't trust everything we see on the internet, but what I'm seeing is that he has collaborated with several artists on different songs, but he released his own song.
Are we allowed to hear it?
Is it
Feel Like I Do? It's called Feel Like I Do.
We can't. It's copyrighted. But
we'll have to check that out after. We're gonna rest.
I can imagine it sounds like this.
Listen, when we are done here, when we're done here and we're in our post-show chat, I will share my screen and we can listen to it.
It's gotta, like, what if he has the voice of an angel? Like, what if he just unexpectedly?
What if he does? Like, I need to know.
I will die. That's why I want you, me too, Courtney.
Oh my God! Hold on, I'm gonna.
Vin Diesel and Shatner. I think that would be a great duet. I think we need to hear that.
He has two songs. He has two songs. Hold on, I'm gonna
not one but two.
Hold on, I'm gonna listen to one.
Two. No, because two. It's hysterical. Quotes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it is quote.
My quote is listening to. There it is. That's what I'm looking at right now.
So soulful. Love the picture.
I cannot wait to listen to this. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm so distracted now. This is my whole life. He says to Michael Caine in the beginning, it's only been 50 years. I'm finally getting used to you, which I thought was pretty funny. when they go to Michael Caine's apartment after he's dead and the flies are on the floor, I thought this was great because I feel like I do this with the crows outside my house.
Mhm.
And so this is something that I really enjoyed about this movie, is that there was a lot of like personal to me witch references. Like there was things that I do, who references to things that I do in Minecraft. So I have these crows that live outside my house, and every time I go outside, they come and say hi to me, or like if there's something, like they just show up, and they show up in different amounts of crows. So I always count the crows. Counting crows. Oh my god. I always count them because to me a certain number means a certain message, right? Mm-hmm. So they're looking at the flies, and he says, if the window hasn't been opened, how did that get in here? And then he said, 1 means nothing, 2 a coincidence, 3 trouble. And I was like, oh, that's me. I do that. And I was, oh, Vin Diesel, you're a witch, even though you're hunting witches. It's so confusing. Okay. Oh, the witch that was disguised as the little girl when they brought him to the council. He said, you look like a terrible band from the 80s. Look at your hair. I think the scary Icelandic guy said, doesn't take much balls to get into a bar fight when you can't get hurt. And then this is the quote that Heather was talking about, and I do want to say something about that too. I almost didn't write this down because I almost shut the movie off because they talked about burning witches, but then I thought about it and I was like, this is actually really important that they're saying this, so I wrote it down. The exact quote is, what is it that people know about us anyway? That we have green skin and like to wear pointy hats and that we're mean and got burned at the stake in Salem. And he says Salem was wrong and those women innocent. And then she goes into talking about how they would, if they weren't witches, they would have been burned. I almost got lost in the burning. And then I remembered, what was that movie that we watched that I loved so much with the burning?
Oh, it was the
Killing Tree.
It was a comedy.
Yeah, it was the one where they had the poster up of all the
Love It Steak.
Love It Steak.
Right. So I remembered that. I took a breath and then I wrote it down.
Well, you know what? I'm just going to stop you there. Is that she's listing things that are wrong in that list. So it makes sense. But the last quote, what she says at the end was really important, where she said, if they had been witches, nobody would remember them because they wouldn't matter. Like now there's memorials for them because they weren't witches. But if they had been witches, she said, if I had been killed, nobody would know. Nobody would try to remember who I am. And that to me was really powerful. So thank you for including that.
Yes. Something
just occurred to me as well as we were talking about, they are using magic to hunt magic users. But it's something that just randomly came to me, something the author John Beckett said one time, where he said witchcraft is unauthorized magic. And so if you think of, it would make sense that the church can use magic. That's okay, we're the church. But you're not doing it the way we want you to. That's the problem.
Uh-huh.
It's
so
like
that does make sense.
Republicans crashing the grinder machine
at
all conventions. Love
that. Funny that you mentioned that because my next quote is, who says a witch can't hunt witches? Yes. I thought that spoke to how confusing the movie was. Uh-huh. Then he said to the Queen Witch, the benefit of eternal life, I get to kill you twice. And in that moment, I was like, I don't know who I'm rooting for right now because that was pretty bad. And then there was the funny part where he was telling Michael Caine in the beginning, where's the iPad I gave you? And he says, no, you write things down on paper and whatever. And then Michael Caine squishes the bug with the book, and he says, try doing that with an iPad. Yeah. So those are my quotes.
Those are good ones.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved all of it.
And you're totally right. You get to a point where you're like, I don't know who I'm rooting for. I mean, I don't want her to go and plague the entire world, but at the same time, she's not wrong.
I do.
But also, when she came out of the tree and the spine was like her ponytail,
the alien.
I literally was like, I'm experiencing an awakening looking at her because I'm excited.
That's an alien. That's from Alien.
Don't talk about that. It is not anything like that. Absolutely not. Heather, you were not on the list, and now you're on the list, and that's real. Oh, that's sad. But it's bones. It's bones.
That's what aliens is supposed to look like.
No, aliens are aliens. It's a bone. It's bones, and it was so cool. And I was like, I like you. And then
I think she looks. Yeah, I think she looks good for more than 40,000 years old too.
Girl,
what an amazing cosplay that would be.
That was, it is interesting about when we can't decide who to root for. It reminds me of how there's been sort of a cultural shift about the character Poison Ivy in DC Comics, where she was like standard crazy Batman villain for decades. And then within the last 10 years, people were like, wait, she wants to protect the environment and kill billionaires.
I've always loved
and everybody's like,
but that's been going on with so many. I mean, think about Maleficent. These stories are getting in with, and like I often talk about when I talk about witches in modern day, it's like we're starting to see all these Elphaba. I mean, the Wicked Witch of the West. We're getting to see what these witches, these backstories, and what happens in 2010s through to now is that we start to see these stories retold, our tales retold from these witches, and we get to see, maybe we don't like what they're doing, maybe we don't like what the witch Caine is about to do, like kill millions of people through a black plague, but we understand why she's doing it, and we're okay with the reason why. And so you see with Maleficent, she's raped. That's why she becomes who she is. Elphaba, we see why she's doing it. We may not agree necessarily with what she's doing, but we know why she's doing it now. And this is continues, and it's in Marvel, it's happening. We're seeing stories about the Joker. Darth Vader was one of the first ones we saw, back in the 90s, we saw it happen. So it's such a fascinating change where we're starting to see champion the anti-hero more and more.
I have to say, one of my favorite anti-heroes, especially in the gay scene, is Debbie Jelensky from Addams Family Values. Don't I ache and yearn and shop? Don't I deserve love and jewelry? I mean, she's the anti-hero.
Yeah.
So
what was that?
If you go back to your point, Heather, just talking about how witches were received, and if you jump down that rabbit hole, I was talking about with Holbein's painting, witches in his time were just considered old women who were poor and lived alone. So that was the criteria.
Boy, am I knocking down that door.
Hello.
You're not old, Courtney.
So it's like
anything
that, to me, that's just anything that could be a woman and how she lives. So.
Can I just point out real quick, totally unrelated, Lisa Parker just brought up the Ouija shark again, and I'm thrilled with the thought of the Ouija shark. Sorry.
So, Ouija shark versus the Killing Tree.
Oh my God, I'll explode. I can't pick a side. They talk about rooting for the anti-hero. I root for them both.
Talk about not knowing who to root for.
I love everything about them. Oh my God. Okay.
Well, I'm afraid to ask what Ouija shark is.
Oh, you're in for it.
Ouija shark. Okay, what? I don't even remember what we were talking about that we came up with the Ouija shark, but there's this piece of wood. It's a movie, but the piece of wood, it's like a driftwood, and there's a Ouija board on it. It floats. It comes to the shore, and then they're playing with the Ouija board, and then a mystical shark head emerges from the board. Ooh. Oh my God. And then the fake shark, which is the ghost shark for no reason, is just swimming through the air and attacking people, and it looks like the best movie I've ever seen. And then the second one, I sent a frantic message to our group chat because the second one, there it is, the second one, and that the ghost shark looks nothing like that. It's like a stuffed animal that somebody just put.
Wait, this is a real
movie?
Movie?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you were just making
no. And then the second one, there's a warlock in it. So I said, it's the law. We have to talk about it on the podcast. And I'm so excited.
It's now on the list.
There
Now
it
we
is.
know what Thumper's doing.
Shark.
Well, it's Ouija Shark versus Croctopolis or something like that. Something. I am beside myself. You're going to need a bigger board.
Oh gosh, I'm in love.
Right?
I have.
With that, we are at the point where we are about to vote. So you at home, one's up or one's down. I bet nobody knows how I'm going to vote in this film.
No idea.
One's up or one's down. My one is definitely.
I hear the shark sound. I have to obviously my wand is up. Nathan told me to report that his wand, he said he info dumped something about some giant hole in Russia that they dug the deepest hole, and he said his wand is so far down the deepest hole that you can never find it. So
He's a smart guy. He is a clever boy.
He's so hilarious.
He's gonna be so happy that I said that.
Very nice.
Miracle. Wands up and horns up. We're getting some love for this movie.
Mary Jane is one's down because she has taste. Robert Hicks, any question? Anybody? Okay, what do we have here?
I'd like to know where Colin's wand is. Is he going to redeem himself or not?
Whoa.
There we go.
One's up, I hated it, but this is my wand is concerned for my safety.
Yeah.
Like, I hated it. One's up is like, it's like Mamma Mia. Like, where all the reviews of Mamma Mia when the movie came out, all the reviews were like, it's terrible and you're a bad person if you don't go see it.
Right. I feel that way. I feel that
it's a similar vibe.
I feel that that's the vibe about The Killing Tree and also Ouija Shark. So can't wait to dive into that.
I would watch the Killing Tree 10 more times before I would even want to watch 5 minutes of tonight's Drek.
Richard-Lael, that's a Tuesday for me. Okay, watching The Killing Tree 10 times.
I would take your Tuesday over having to sit through Vin unleaded cardboard acting.
Well, hopefully you'll like next week's movie better, Richard-Lael.
What is next week's movie?
Well, we originally had Ghostbusters, but I believe it's Ghostbusters 2. And I think it is the selection of our wonderful producer for his birthday. So we're going to be doing Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2.
Love it. I mean, you don't know yet, but I love it. I may or may not. Well, we are coming up on time. Does anyone have anything coming up in the next couple of weeks or months ahead?
I'm very busy hexing now because of all of the things that I've seen tonight. And also watching Ouija Shark. That's all I've got. I'm at the themes on all the things. I do not, if you're sending me Facebook messages or Instagram messages, I am not seeing them. I am on Blue Sky and TikTok for now. And Twitch. Wow, I blanked. You can get a hold of me that way.
Tabitha, how can we find you?
Just through Facebook, and I do private mediumship readings, and I don't have anything coming up right now until the summertime. So yeah.
Thumper?
You can find me everywhere at Fivefold Law. I'm mainly on Blue Sky and TikTok are the best places to find me. I don't have any events coming up, but I do have a book coming out in November.
Congratulations.
Called what?
Yay.
What's the name of the book, Thumper?
I'm not allowed to say it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's called The Chaos Apple, Magic and Discordianism for the Postmodern Witch.
I'm smashing the pre-order button.
Right?
Yay! My first pre-order!
It's really
I
fun.
love it.
Of books, Heather Greene.
Yeah, I am mostly right now Blue Sky. I don't check a whole lot of stuff I'm sometimes on Facebook, and I rarely go to Instagram. But I am Heather Greene, or Heather Greene Writes on a number of things. You can find me there. And I am going to be at Paganicon in the end of March. I'll be teaching a haunted doll class as well as puppets there. That's in Minneapolis at the end of March, and I will share dates later. I'm also teaching a class next week on building an altar with got my mind just blanked where I'm doing it online, and I'll have that on my Facebook page. For some reason it's late here, sorry. But that's just a thing that has come up. And I think that's it for now. And I'm just around.
And I am really easy to find, but I am still on the medias of social because I am, even though I love, hate, whatever. Anyway, media of social. I'm still at University of Magicus. I'm still at thegentlemanpsychic.com. I am a little bit of everywhere, and we are now at time, and there is one thing left to do that all queen witches, all grand high witches do, and that is we cackle and cackle and cackle. And here we go. 3, 2, 1.